I never thought the sound of a front door opening could change my life. But that night, it did. It was supposed to be a simple dinner at our friend's house in Austin. Nothing fancy, just a weekend get-together. The kind of thing we'd done dozens of times over the years. Wine, barbecue, small talk, laughter echoing off the patio lights. But as fate would have it, the night turned into a scene I'll never forget. I had carpooled with Greg, the husband of Marissa, one of my supposed friends. We lived in the same neighborhood, and it just made sense to drive together since our spouses had gone ahead earlier, claiming they needed to help set things up. I remember joking in the car about how mine probably couldn't even figure out where the forks were kept in our own kitchen, let alone help with a dinner party. When the host opened the door, I noticed immediately that the air inside felt different. The laughter was muffled, too quiet, almost forced. There were half a dozen people already seated around the dining table, wine glasses in hand, chatting in that nervous way people do when they've just witnessed something they shouldn't have. I didn't catch on right away. My heels clicked across the hardwood as Greg followed behind me, both of us smiling, calling out greetings. But then I saw them. My husband, Tyler, and Marissa, not sitting at the table, not helping in the kitchen. No, they were pressed up against the hallway wall just past the living room, locked in a kiss so deep, so hungry, that for a split second my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. His hands were under her sweater, hers clawing at his shirt like some cheap movie scene. And then it hit me. The lace bralette peeking out from her blouse. I knew it instantly because it was mine. A piece of lingerie I had bought months ago, tag still on until I wore it once for Tyler. And there it was, stretched across her chest while she kissed my husband like she owned him. My breath caught, sharp and ugly in my throat. The room went silent, except for the scrape of Greg's shoes as he stopped dead behind me. For a moment, nobody moved. Not Tyler, not Marissa, not the people at the table who had clearly already witnessed this circus before we arrived. Greg's voice broke the silence. It wasn't calm. It was a roar. "Marissa! What the hell is this?" They sprang apart, clumsy and guilty, eyes wide like kids caught stealing from a candy store. Tyler stammered something. "Sam, wait, it's not what it looks like." The most pathetic, predictable line in the book. I didn't wait. I stepped right up to him, so close I could smell the wine on his breath, and my palm connected with his face before I even realized I'd moved. The slap cracked through the room, sharp as glass breaking. His head snapped to the side, and when he looked back at me, there was no trace of shame. Just anger at being caught. Marissa tried to pull her sweater tighter over my lingerie, but it was too late. I jabbed a finger toward her, my voice shaking but loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. "You think you can crawl into my bed, put on my clothes, and take what's mine? You disgusting, pathetic." My words caught in my throat, rage choking me. Greg stepped forward, his face red, fists clenched. "Is this what you do when you say you're working late? Screw my wife in our friends' houses?" He looked ready to swing at Tyler, and for a split second I almost wanted him to. The host tried to intervene, hands up like he could calm a storm. Hey, let's just..." But no one was listening. The dinner was over before it had even begun. Tyler reached for me, maybe to grab my arm, maybe to beg. I jerked back, eyes locked on his. "Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me." The room was still frozen, the witnesses caught between pity and horror. I could feel their eyes on me, on the lingerie, on the wreckage of what had just exploded in front of them. And in that moment, I realized something with absolute clarity. The humiliation wasn't mine to carry. It was his. Theirs. I straightened my spine, every ounce of hurt hardening into steel. "You wanted to humiliate me?" My voice was ice. "Congratulations, you've done it. But hear me, Tyler. This isn't the end. It's the beginning." I turned to Marissa, who was clutching Greg's arm now, her face pale as ash. "And you," I spat, "you'll regret ever thinking you could step into my life. Enjoy the scraps while you can." I didn't wait for their replies. I didn't need to. The silence said it all. I grabbed my purse off the counter, my hands surprisingly steady, and walked out the door into the Texas night air. Greg followed a few steps before stopping, muttering curses under his breath, probably ready to tear his marriage apart in his own way. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. My heels hit the driveway like a drumbeat, each step heavier than the last, but also steadier. I wasn't just leaving a dinner party. I was leaving behind the version of myself who tolerated lies, who ignored late nights and hollow excuses, who believed in the mask Tyler wore. By the time I reached my car, my tears had dried before they even had the chance to fall. My chest was still tight, my pulse still racing, but under all of it, there was something new. A vow, quiet but unshakable, echoing in my bones. He thought tonight was the night he humiliated me, but I knew better. Tonight was the night I began to burn it all down. When I got home that night, the silence of my own house felt heavier than the shouting I'd just walked away from. I sat in the dark living room, the walls around me echoing with years of memories, and I realized just how much of myself I had poured into a marriage that was already crumbling long before I saw it. Tyler and I had been married for 15 years. We met in our mid-20s, back when I still believed hard work and loyalty were enough to hold a man's attention. He was charming then, hungry for success in Austin's booming tech world, while I was steady, the one who held things together. When my mother passed, the inheritance I received became the down payment for our first house. I told myself it was an investment in our future, but now I see it was really the first brick in a castle he thought he owned. I gave him space to chase his dreams. I scaled back my own career plans, choosing flexible hours so I could raise our daughter, Emily, without relying on daycare. I cooked, I budgeted, I stretched my mother's money into something that gave us security. I told myself these sacrifices were temporary, that once his career took off, we'd build something together. But together slowly became one-sided. His successes were always his. His promotions, his new car, the vacations, all presented like trophies he earned alone, while I stood quietly in the background. The warning signs were always there. The late-night meetings that stretched past midnight, the sudden trips to Dallas that never added up, the way he started guarding his phone like it held nuclear codes. When I asked, he'd brush me off with a laugh, kiss my forehead, and call me paranoid. And I let him. I let my loyalty blind me, because admitting the truth meant admitting the last decade of my life had been built on lies. Emily was the one who finally stripped away the last of my denial. She's 15 now, sharp, more observant than I ever gave her credit for. A few weeks before the dinner party, she had come to me quietly, her voice trembling. "Mom, I think Dad's seeing someone." I remember how my stomach dropped, how I wanted to shut her down, protect her from the ugliness I wasn't ready to face. I asked her what made her think that, and she told me she'd seen him once downtown, holding hands with a woman who wasn't me. She hadn't said anything sooner because she thought she might be wrong. But the look in her eyes told me she wasn't. I told her she must have misunderstood, that maybe it was a coworker, maybe he was just being friendly. The lie slipped out of my mouth before I could stop it, because I wasn't ready to see what was right in front of me. But Emily's silence afterward was louder than anything she could have said. She knew. And now, after walking into that dinner party with Greg and watching Tyler paw at Marissa like she was some prize he'd won, I knew too. The confirmation wasn't whispered rumors, or suspicious receipts, or my daughter's worried voice. It was raw and undeniable, wrapped in lace I had once bought for myself. That night in the dark, I finally admitted it. I had sacrificed years of myself for a man who saw me as nothing more than a safety net. And the weight of those sacrifices, my inheritance, my time, my career, even my daughter's innocence, had just shifted. They weren't losses anymore. They were fuel. Because if Tyler thought I'd walk away quietly, he didn't know me at all. The morning after the dinner party, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache, but I wasn't broken. Something inside me had shifted. The tears that stained my pillow weren't weakness. They were the last drops of a woman who had been fooled for too long. I wasn't going to beg for answers or wait for apologies. I was going to take control. The first thing I did was log into our joint accounts. Years of managing the household budget made me the one who actually knew where the money went. Tyler might have been the one earning the big checks, but I had been the one stretching them, allocating them, making sure Emily had what she needed. And now, I was the one clicking the transfer button, moving everything I legally could into an account he couldn't touch. Watching those numbers change on the screen felt like oxygen filling my lungs. For once, he was the one left scrambling. Next came the lawyer. I didn't wait, didn't overthink it. By noon, I was sitting in a quiet office downtown across from a woman named Jillian, who had the kind of calm, razor-sharp presence that instantly made me trust her. I told her everything. The affair, the money, the inheritance that started it all. She didn't flinch. Instead, she nodded, took notes, and told me I'd done the right thing by moving funds. She outlined my options, everything from temporary custody to freezing assets until the divorce proceedings. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I wasn't standing alone. After that, I went home and started packing. Not everything, just what Emily and I needed if we had to walk out fast. Clothes, important documents, the box of photos my mom left me. As I folded shirts and zipped bags, my hands trembled, not from fear but from adrenaline. I kept thinking about the look on Tyler's face when my slap cracked across his cheek. Not guilt, not shame, just outrage at losing control. He had no idea how much more he was about to lose. By late afternoon, the first ripple hit. My phone lit up with his name. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text popped up. "Sam, we need to talk. Don't do anything rash. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word burned through me. As if catching him groping another woman in front of half our social circle was something small, something to get over. I deleted the text without replying. An hour later, he showed up at the house. His key still worked, but I was ready. Emily was at a friend's, so it was just the two of us. He walked in, his voice already raised. "What the hell did you do with the accounts?" I stood in the doorway to the kitchen, arms crossed. What I had to do. "You don't get to sleep with my friend, parade her around in my clothes, and still expect me to bankroll your life." His face turned red. "This is insane. You're destroying everything we built." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound I didn't even recognize as my own. "No, Tyler, you destroyed it. I'm just cleaning up the mess." He tried to soften, shifting tactics like he always did when anger didn't work. "Sam, come on. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake. Don't do this to us. To Emily." Hearing her name on his lips made my blood boil. "Don't you dare use her as a shield. She saw you, Tyler. She knows. And she deserves better than this circus you've created." For a second, the mask slipped. Panic flashed across his face. He hadn't realized Emily knew. That gave me more power than any slap ever could. I didn't give him time to recover. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. This is happening. You can fight me, but you won't win. Not this time." His fist clenched, jaw tight, but he didn't move. He knew me well enough to recognize I wasn't bluffing. He muttered something under his breath, grabbed his keys, and stormed out. The door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled on the wall. I stood there in the silence afterward, my chest rising and falling, heart pounding with something that wasn't fear anymore. It was resolve. Tyler had always seen me as the safe option, the woman who'd quietly keep the house running while he played his games. But now he was about to learn who I really was. Because this wasn't me reacting. This was me planning, and I had only just begun. The fallout came faster than even I expected. The morning after Tyler stormed out of the house, I woke to a flurry of messages on my phone. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely spoke to from our wider social circle had something to say. Word of the dinner party spread like wildfire, and by now everyone knew. Austin isn't a small town, but in certain circles, Gossip travels faster than the news. The texts ranged from shock to sympathy. Sam, I'm so sorry. I can't believe he did this. If you need anything, call me. You don't deserve this. And from one friend who had never liked Tyler, about time you found out what he's really like. Each message stung, but they also hardened me. The humiliation wasn't just mine anymore. It was his. He had paraded his affair into a space where people couldn't unsee it, and now it was out of his control. By noon, Tyler was calling again. I let it ring. A few minutes later, my lawyer called to tell me he had already tried reaching out through his own attorney. Apparently, freezing the accounts had struck a nerve. He was livid. Jillian's voice was calm, reassuring. Don't engage directly. Everything goes through me now. That sentence gave me the first taste of real peace I'd felt in days. Meanwhile, the mistress wasn't spared either. Greg wasn't the type to suffer quietly. By the afternoon, he had posted a cryptic but fiery message on Facebook. Nothing explicit, but sharp enough that everyone who knew them could read between the lines. Something about betrayal cutting deepest when it comes from your own home, about masks slipping. The comments flooded in, and Marissa's perfect image started to unravel. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't have to. The silence worked in my favor. Everyone else was doing the talking for me. The financial chokehold hit Tyler hard, too. He had grown accustomed to having cash at his fingertips. Dinners, drinks, hotel rooms he thought I didn't know about. Now, every card he pulled out declined. He texted me again that night. You've made your point. Turn the accounts back on. We'll talk. I didn't reply. It wasn't a point. It was a warning shot. The cracks widened in our families as well. My sister called, her voice tight with anger. Sam, I don't know how you kept quiet for so long, but you did the right thing. Don't let him spin this. Everyone needs to know the truth. She promised she'd stand by me, whatever came next. On Tyler's side, the silence was telling. His brother, usually quick to defend him in every argument, stayed quiet. I knew why. They worked together in the same company, and Tyler's reputation mattered for business. Now that reputation was in shambles, and siding with him would mean dragging his own name down too. Loyalty only stretches as far as profit. Emily came home from her friend's house with questions. Mom, is Dad coming back? I paused, because every part of me wanted to protect her, to cushion the blow. But lying now would be worse than the truth. No, honey. Not like before. Things are changing. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. And in that quiet, I realized she was stronger than I had given her credit for. Maybe stronger than me. The first real attempt from Tyler came that weekend. He showed up unannounced again, pounding on the door. I opened it just enough to look him in the eye. He looked different, tired, unshaven, desperate. The cocky arrogance had started to chip away. Sam, please, he said, his voice low. We can fix this. Just, let's talk without lawyers, without all this drama. I made a mistake. Don't throw everything away. I didn't blink. You threw it away. I'm just making sure the trash goes where it belongs. His jaw tightened, the pleading look fading back into rage. You're destroying me. No, I said, my voice steady. You're destroying yourself. I'm just letting everyone see it. I shut the door before he could reply. My hands shook afterward, but not from fear, from power. For once, I wasn't the one begging for scraps of his attention. He was the one outside, shut out, left to stew in his own consequences. Inside, I sat with Emily on the couch and turned on a movie. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in years, I felt lighter. The first battle was won, but the war had only begun. The first humiliation at the dinner party was brutal, but Tyler still thought he could spin it. He underestimated me, and he underestimated the people watching. By the time the second public confrontation came, he walked right into it, and I made sure he didn't walk out the same. It happened at a restaurant downtown. a place we used to frequent as a family, now the setting for his unraveling. Emily and I had gone there for lunch with my sister. I hadn't planned to see him, but fate, or maybe karma, put us in the same room. Tyler was already seated at a corner table with two colleagues, men I knew he relied on to keep his business afloat. He looked polished, clean-shaven, forcing that confident smile I had learned to see through. At first, I thought about ignoring him, but then I saw Marissa's name light up his phone screen, flashing on the table where anyone could see. His colleagues glanced at it, exchanged looks, and I realized he hadn't stopped. He hadn't slowed down. He was still dragging my name through the mud while trying to maintain his empire. So when I stood to leave, I didn't head for the door. I walked straight to his table. My heels clicked against the tile, and I felt every eye in the room turn as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "Tyler," I said, loud enough for his colleagues and half the restaurant to hear. He looked up, startled, then tried to recover with a strained smile. "Sam. Hi. Can we not—" I cut him off. "Tell them. Tell your colleagues who Marissa is. Or should I?" His face drained of color. One of the men frowned, leaning back in his chair. "What's this about?" I leaned on the table, close enough to see Tyler's mask slipping. "This is about your family man facade, about how you parade yourself as a husband and father while screwing around with my friend, about how you humiliated me in front of everyone and you're still doing it." A gasp rippled from a nearby table. I didn't care. Tyler tried to reach for my arm, but I pulled back. "Don't you dare touch me. You've already touched enough that doesn't belong to you." His colleagues looked uncomfortable, eyes darting between us. One of them cleared his throat. "Tyler, is this true?" And that's when I dropped the line that spread like wildfire. "Of course it's true. Ask him why his mistress was wearing my lingerie the night I caught them. Ask him how it feels to lose his family, his money, and soon his business. All for a cheap thrill." The room went silent, except for the sound of forks clattering onto plates. People were staring openly now, some whispering, some recording on their phones. Tyler's face was crimson. He tried to bluster, to laugh it off. "She's exaggerating, But his voice cracked, and no amount of smooth talk could cover the panic in his eyes. His colleagues stood abruptly, muttering something about needing air, leaving him alone at the table. I straightened, adjusted my bag on my shoulder, and looked him dead in the eye. "You thought you could bury me, Tyler. But I'm not the one suffocating." Then I turned and walked back to Emily and my sister, who had been watching from across the room. Emily's eyes were wide, but there was pride there too. She wasn't embarrassed by me. She was proud I had stood up, loud and unshakable, in a way she'd never seen before. As we left the restaurant, I could hear whispers spreading from table to table. The mic drop line was already out of my mouth and into the city's bloodstream. People would retell it, share it, laugh at his expense. He wasn't the successful husband and father anymore. He was the man whose wife caught him, whose downfall was being narrated by strangers over lunch. By the time we stepped into the sunlight, my phone was buzzing. Messages, missed calls, notifications. Someone had already posted about what happened. I didn't need to look to know the story was spreading. Tyler had wanted to keep control, to keep his mask intact, to spin his narrative. But now, there was no narrative left for him to control. He was a punchline, and I wasn't done yet. I thought Tyler would retreat after the restaurant. Anyone else would have, but I should have known better. Tyler was never the type to admit defeat. Not in his career, not in arguments, and certainly not in the collapse of his image. So instead of staying quiet and letting the storm pass, he tried to fight back. 2 days later, a friend texted me a link to a local news site. "You need to see this," she wrote. I clicked, and there it was, an interview with Tyler. He'd gone on record, smiling politely for the camera, talking about how rumors and exaggerations had blown up his private life. "She's angry, and I understand that," he said, voice calm, every word rehearsed. "But Samantha has always been dramatic. Anyone who knows her knows she tends to overreact. I've made mistakes, sure, but nothing close to the stories being spread." I just want privacy for my daughter and me while we sort this out. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. He hadn't just called me a liar. He had painted me as unstable, a hysterical woman whose anger couldn't be trusted. And worst of all, he used Emily as his shield, the same way he had when he begged at the door. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. People shared it on Facebook, commented on it in community groups, speculated in whispers at yoga classes and soccer games. Some defended me. Others gave him the benefit of the doubt. Tyler was good at performance. He'd spent his whole life pretending to be someone he wasn't. But what he didn't count on was the truth catching up faster than his lies. That evening, I got a call from Jillian, my lawyer. Her tone was different, urgent. "Sam, you need to see this." She sent me a file, screenshots, text messages, photos, proof. Greg had finally unleashed the evidence. He had combed through Marissa's phone records, emails, even cloud storage, and what he found was a treasure chest of incriminating filth. Hotel receipts, love notes, pictures Tyler had been reckless enough to send, thinking they'd stay private. At first, I didn't want to look. The idea of seeing those texts, of reading the words he used with her, made my stomach turn. But I forced myself, because this wasn't about hurt anymore. It was about ammunition. And ammunition it was. One screenshot in particular would become the nail in his coffin. It was a message Tyler sent to Marissa just a week before the dinner party. "I can't wait until she's out of the picture. You'll look so much better in her place." Cold, heartless, stripped of any pretense of love for me or Emily. Just lust and arrogance. Greg leaked it to a private group first, but within hours it had spilled everywhere. By morning, it was on Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram reels, plastered with hashtags like "Da lingerie liar" and "better in her place." Strangers mocked him, memes popped up, even parody accounts started posting. Tyler, the polished tech exec, was reduced to a joke online. Emily showed me one, her face torn between anger and grim satisfaction. It was a photo of a man in a suit holding lingerie on a hanger captioned, "Does it come in my wife's size?" She asked, "Mom, is it okay if I laugh?" I pulled her into a hug. "Yes, baby, it's more than okay." Tyler must have thought he could drown out the noise by doubling down. He posted a statement on his LinkedIn, of all places, painting himself as a victim of false narratives fueled by personal vendettas. He wrote about forgiveness, about the dangers of cancel culture, about being a man trying to do right by his family in the face of lies. But the receipts were undeniable. People flooded the comments with screenshots, with hashtags, with blunt questions he couldn't answer. By the end of the day, his profile was a battlefield, his credibility in shreds. The funniest part? He had no idea how much worse it could get. Because Greg wasn't done. He released more, bank statements showing suspicious charges, emails scheduling business trips that coincided perfectly with Marissa's vacations. Even Uber receipts from nights Tyler had claimed he was working late, but instead had been dropped off at her condo. It was all there, laid out for the world to see. The backlash snowballed. Local blogs picked it up, then gossip pages, then even a podcast that thrived on Austin scandals. Tyler's name was everywhere, not for his work, not for his accomplishments, but for his betrayal. The hashtags became a chant that followed him into every space he entered. One night, scrolling through my phone, I saw a video of him trying to walk into a bar. Someone shouted, "Hey, lingerie liar!" And the whole crowd laughed. He pushed past, his face twisted in anger, but the cameras caught it all. It was uploaded within minutes, the comments tearing him apart. And me? I stayed silent. I didn't post, I didn't defend, I didn't fuel it. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything I could say. Emily asked me once, "Does it feel good seeing everyone turn on him?" I thought about it before I answered. "It doesn't feel good," I told her. "It feels fair. Like the world finally sees him the way we do." By the end of the week, Tyler stopped posting. His accounts went quiet. His face disappeared from interviews. but the damage was already done. His attempts to play the victim had backfired spectacularly, and now he wasn't just losing his family, he was losing the one thing he valued most, his reputation. And I wasn't finished. Not yet. By the time the memes died down, it was time to stop playing defense and move into the real battlefield. The courts. Gossip and hashtags had shredded Tyler's image. But I wanted more than humiliation. I wanted permanence. Something he couldn't spin or recover from. Jillian, my lawyer, moved like a surgeon. She filed for divorce citing adultery, a fact backed up by more evidence than most judges ever see. She petitioned for sole custody of Emily, temporary possession of the house, and financial disclosure of every asset Tyler tried to bury. He fought it, of course. His attorney, a slick man with an expensive suit and a rehearsed smirk, argued that marital issues shouldn't be tried in the court of public opinion. But the judge didn't care about hashtags or interviews. The judge cared about evidence. And evidence was all I had. I'll never forget the look on Tyler's face when Jillian slid the folder across the table during the first hearing. Copies of texts, receipts, photos, proof beyond denial. He had to sit there in silence while the judge skimmed them, lips pressed into a thin line. "This is compelling," the judge finally said. "Very compelling." Tyler's lawyer tried to object, but it was like throwing pebbles at a storm. The first ruling was swift. Tyler was ordered to provide temporary spousal support and full child support, effective immediately. His access to our joint assets was frozen. I kept the house, Emily's school tuition secured under my control. For the first time, Tyler looked smaller. Not just angry, not just embarrassed, smaller. The financial blows came next. Remember the brother who always defended him? The one who worked at the same company? He pulled his support almost overnight. Investors had started asking questions, clients whispering about scandal. Tyler had become a liability, and business is merciless. His brother stopped returning his calls, and word spread that he was considering pushing Tyler out of the company altogether. Then came the real kicker, his father. A man who prided himself on legacy, on respectability. He'd been quiet through most of this, but during a family meeting, one I didn't attend but heard about through whispers, he told Tyler he was cut off. No more loans, no more bailouts, no inheritance guarantees. "You've embarrassed this family," he reportedly said. "And I won't be dragged down with you." Tyler tried to play the victim again, crying about being attacked, but even his father wasn't buying it anymore. Years of arrogance, years of entitlement, all of it came due in a single sentence. And Marissa? Her collapse was almost poetic. Greg filed for divorce within weeks. He moved out, took the kids, and filed his own stack of evidence. She went from posting vacation selfies to posting nothing at all. Friends who once orbited around her like moths vanished. She was radioactive, untouchable. By the time her own parents got involved, begging Greg for forgiveness, it was too late. He wasn't interested. Neither was anyone else. At home, Emily and I built a new rhythm. Mornings were quieter without Tyler slamming doors, evenings calmer without me waiting for his car to pull up long past dinner. She blossomed in the stillness, as if the absence of tension gave her room to breathe. But Tyler didn't let go easily. He showed up at hearings looking disheveled, tried to bargain with me in hallways, sometimes even threatened to take Emily away. The first time he said it, my stomach turned cold. But Jillian leaned close and whispered, "Empty words. He has no case." She was right. With his affair public and his finances under scrutiny, no judge in their right mind would hand him custody. Still, hearing him spit those threats reminded me why I couldn't falter. He wasn't just reckless. He was cruel. As the weeks dragged on, his life unraveled piece by piece. The house he tried to keep? Forced onto the market by court order. The credit cards he once flashed like trophies? Maxed out? Declined? Frozen. He moved into a rental apartment downtown, one he could barely afford, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and silence. Every new hearing stripped away another layer of his pride. Jillian was relentless, pressing him on financial mismanagement, reminding the court of his affair every time he tried to protest. He grew angrier, snapping at his lawyer, raising his voice in front of the judge. Each outburst only dug him deeper. The final blow came with the custody ruling. Sole custody granted to me, visitation strictly supervised until he could prove stability. The judge's words landed like a hammer. This court finds Mr. Picklam's behavior reckless, his judgment impaired, and his home environment unsuitable for a minor. Tyler slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. He looked over at me, eyes hollow, like he couldn't believe I had won. But it wasn't just me. It was the truth, undeniable and brutal, finally given the weight it deserved. After court that day, Emily hugged me tighter than she ever had before. "Mom," she whispered, "we're really free now, aren't we?" I kissed the top of her head. "Yes, baby. We are." And though the legal battles dragged on a little longer, the splitting of assets, the paperwork, the endless signatures, the outcome was sealed. Tyler was dismantled, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, ally by ally. By the time the dust settled, he wasn't the man who had strutted around in suits, flashing smiles and charm. He was broke, abandoned, irrelevant. And I was standing, stronger than ever, with Emily by my side. I had taken everything he thought he'd never lose. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't expect to see him again after the final hearing. I thought Tyler would fade into the background, too humiliated to risk another scene. But men like him don't disappear quietly. They come crawling, dragging their pride behind them, hoping to scrape together one last chance. It happened on a gray Sunday afternoon. Emily was at a friend's, and I had gone to a cafe downtown to catch up on work. When I walked out with my coffee, he was there, leaning against the wall, thinner than I remembered, eyes bloodshot, clothes wrinkled. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked less like the man I married and more like a stranger who had burned through every last ounce of charm. "Samantha," he said, stepping forward. His voice cracked, nothing like the polished tone he used to command rooms. "Please, just hear me out." I froze, every instinct telling me to walk away. But something inside me wanted to hear it. Not for him, but for me. I wanted to see what was left of the man who thought he could break me. He followed as I sat at a bench nearby, keeping my distance. He shoved his hands into his pockets, shoulders hunched. "I lost everything," he said. "The house, the money, my job. My family won't even talk to me. Marissa's gone. Everyone's gone. I don't have anything left." I sipped my coffee, unbothered by his confession. That's what happens when you build your life on lies, Tyler. It crumbles. He flinched, then tried another angle. "But we had good years, didn't we? Don't you remember? We built something together." "I screwed up, yes, but you can't just erase everything we had." I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or grief. I felt clarity. "You're right. I can't erase it, but I can end it. And I already have." His jaw tightened. "I'm begging you, Sam. Just give me another chance. Let me fix this." His voice cracked again, desperate and raw. "Please." The irony wasn't lost on me. For years I had begged him to come home on time, begged him to be honest, begged him to love me the way he pretended to love everyone else. And now here he was, begging me, stripped of everything that once made him untouchable. "You don't get another chance," I said, my voice steady. "You had years of chances, and every single one you threw away." He dropped his head into his hands, shoulders shaking. "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live like this." I leaned forward, my tone sharp. "Then figure it out, because I won't save you. Not now, not ever." He lifted his head, eyes wet, looking at me like I was the only lifeline he had left. "Sam, please, just say something. Tell me what I can do." I stood, tossing the empty coffee cup into the trash. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake. I wasn't the broken woman who had walked into that dinner party months ago. I was the one who walked out, rebuilt, and reclaimed everything he tried to take. I looked him dead in the eye, and the words came without hesitation. "You're the architect of your own destruction." His face crumpled as the sentence hung in the air, final and immovable. I turned and walked away, heels clicking against the pavement, never once looking back, because there was nothing left to see. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like the ruins Tyler left behind. It wasn't perfect. Healing never is. But it was mine. The house felt lighter without him, as if the walls had exhaled. I'd repainted Emily's room, updated the kitchen, turned the office into a small studio where I freelanced again. Money wasn't tight. The inheritance my mother left me was back in my hands, and between the court rulings and Tyler's forced payouts, Emily and I had security. Not wealth, not extravagance, stability. The kind of peace you can't buy. Emily thrived in ways I hadn't imagined. She laughed louder, studied harder, spoke more openly. Sometimes I caught her watching me with a quiet pride that made me tear up. One evening, she said, "You're stronger now, Mom. I can see it." I hugged her, knowing she was stronger too, forged by truth instead of illusion. And me? I rediscovered pieces of myself I thought I'd buried. I started running again, signed up for a writing workshop, even traveled with Emily to New Mexico for a weekend, just because we wanted to see the desert. Every step away from Tyler was a step toward the woman I'd forgotten I could be. As for him, the last I heard wasn't from him directly, but through whispers. He'd lost the company position. His brother pushed him out after investors fled. He lived in a cramped apartment, bouncing between odd consulting jobs, barely keeping afloat. Marissa was long gone, divorced and forgotten. The man who once walked into rooms with his head high now couldn't even show his face without someone muttering "lingerie liar" under their breath. One afternoon, Emily and I passed him downtown by chance. He was thinner, unshaven, carrying a plastic grocery bag with wrinkled shirts inside. Our eyes met briefly, but there was nothing left to say. He looked away first. That was the moment I knew I was free. Not because he was ruined, but because he no longer had power over me. He was a chapter closed, a cautionary tale whispered among strangers. And I was no longer a character in his story. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a betrayed wife. I see a woman who survived, who fought, who rebuilt. I see someone who walked through humiliation and fire and came out unburned. Betrayal broke the life I thought I wanted. But freedom built the life I deserved. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts or even your own experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow and keeps more stories coming your way.